Good afternoon, everybody. I was hoping for a good afternoon back, but it's fine, I won't take it personally. Thank you. There you go. It's after lunch, we're all sleepy. Thank you very much for coming to our talk today. We're going to be talking about unmasking SMS phishing and looking at disruption with phishing kits. So if you like credential phishing, SMS, mobile phishing kits, you're in the right place. If you're not, there's two other talks that way. They're not as good.
Not nearly as good.
My name's Jake Sloane. I'm the manager of the Threat Intelligence Department at WMC Global. I'm here with my boss, so please everyone be nice. Ben Coon, who is the VP of Threat Intelligence. Ben, I'll pass it over to you as he's going to take the first half of this talk.
Thanks, Jake. So we're going to start talking about SMS, how SMS works, give you guys a little bit of an inside view of what the different pipes look like as you pass an SMS from a device into the network and out to the distant device. We're going to start off with delivery methods. So there are a number of different delivery methods. A lot of people will think SMS is somebody sending a text message from a phone to another phone. But there are multiple ways to get into SMS other than that. Peer-to-peer, that's exactly what I just said. Sending a text message from one device into another. Application to person. So A to P can come in two methods, short code or 10-digit long code. So everyone here has probably seen short code, 5, 6, 7-digit number that comes across with your bank information or 2FA or something like that. And then 10-digit long code, it'll be the same thing, Uber, bank, things like that will pass traffic. Those are actually not devices that are doing that. That's an actual application that sends that through. Email to SMS, which up until just a little while ago was just a cesspool of fraud. And then toll-free numbers. So you can send toll-free numbers can send SMS traffic. This is a loose diagram of what the carrier networks look like in order to deliver SMS. So if you look in the lower left, you'll see a little person in a yellow box. And then everything up to on the left-hand side is what I talked about in the previous slide. So you've got short code, you've got 10DLC, you got direct connections into the aggregators who pass the traffic into the carrier network, which then goes off to the distant end. And then up at the top, you've got your standard SMS. The important thing to note is where you see gateways and filters. This is, for all intents and purposes, what their firewalling system looks like. The important thing to note about this, and what a lot of people don't understand, is each one of these pipes has a different filter. In some carriers, those pipes or those filters are run by different vendors. So if you have a fraud event, or if you have an SMS campaign that is taking place, say, over email to SMS, and the vendor puts a block in, the threat actor can then move from email to SMS to A to P or 10DLC with the same campaign, and it will not be filtered. This is why it is very important to understand this, because the threat actors know this. They talk about it on Telegram, Discord, dark web. All of this is very easy to circumvent, and we have to have more communication between people in order to get this mitigated in a faster response. To give you an idea on SMS and how quickly an event can take place, we can see 1.5 to 2 million text messages in just a few seconds, and it's delivered. It's on handsets. So it's really important to understand this. So back in the 90s, a little quick history, back in the mid to late 90s, I was working for the company that built the interoperability of SMS. So back then, you could only send a text message if you were on the same carrier. So we helped build all of this routing, which is why we understand a lot of this right now. There are ways to mitigate this. So if you haven't heard of 7726, anybody here not heard of 7726? Okay, so for those of you who haven't, 7726, that spells spam on an old T9 phone, candy bar type phone. And that is the way that you report messages that you don't like. And the way that you do it is you forward that message to the short code, 7726, and then they say, thank you very much for reporting this. can you tell me who sent you this message or who sent this message? And then you have to then go back and get that number and report it back. Then that goes into the carriers for them to mitigate. The most reported number of spam or phishing is 7726, because the question is, who sent me this message? And they look, well, 7726 sent me this message. So the whole thing, it's like a 5 or 6 step process that you have to go through in order to report messaging. Now I'm going to talk about a few things here. One is, in the ecosystem, what is the most secure way to route traffic over SMS? So if you are working for an organization, say a financial institution, you want to have your clients be able to report things to you or to do 2FA or something like that over text phone, which is the most secure way? Probably shortcode. So shortcode right now, because it is very deeply regulated, is the most secure way. The second would probably be 10DLC. All of those 10DLC campaigns are vetted, and once they're vetted, then they're allowed to send traffic. And you get, depending on your vet score, it will show you how much traffic you get to send on that 10-digit long code. Up until about a week and a half ago, spoofing of shortcodes did not exist. We started an investigation probably about a week ago where we were seeing evidence of spoofing of shortcodes. Now I want to be real clear here. That is not a carrier problem. There's actually a bug or what we think is a bug in iOS that will allow email to SMS to show up as a shortcode. What the threat actors are doing is they're malforming the from line to make iOS ignore that entire from line and pick up the first word in the body of the text message. The threat actors know if I put Wells Fargo's shortcode in there, it will look like it's coming from Wells Fargo's shortcode. And then they'll put, a link in there for you to click on or a callback number or something like that to perpetrate their fraud. Let's go to the next slide. SMS delivery tools. SIM cards, if you either have an eSIM in your phone or you have an actual physical SIM card. CPaaS platforms, so these are folks like Twilio. Who are some of the other ones? Twilio.
Nexmo.
Nexmo is another one. So these are the folks that have direct binds into the carriers, and they will pass traffic on behalf of somebody who is doing business. So if you work for somebody that is doing text message marketing or text message 2FA or notifications, they're probably working with the CPaaS platform. Free app-supported carriers, this is TextNow, TextMe. A lot of fraud happens over these. I'm not picking on TextNow or TextMe. There's a lot of good in that, but a lot of fraud does take place over that. Open source software. If you Google, I want to send a lot of text messages, you will see all the open source software that's out there. Threat actors will take advantage of that because what they will do is you'll have to have some sort of API key to send the traffic. You can find these API keys online. You can buy them. $10 will get you 5,000 text messages. You just put it in there. It's been stolen or it's been found in a compromise or something like that. And then a ton of e-marketing tools. If you are in marketing or something like that, you know all about these tools. It's a standard way, just like email. It's the same for text message. Emerging SMS trends. So this is the stuff that we have taken a look at in our organization over the past 12 months on what's happening inside of text message that's perpetrating fraud. Is there anybody here that doesn't know what pig butchering is? Or maybe I should say, is there anybody here that does know what pig butchering is? Okay, so if you don't know what pig butchering is, this is kind of a play on the old romance scam. So you'll get a message, and normally the message just is, hi. And you will be like, hi back. And they'll be like, Fred, are you coming to the birthday party next week? I'm not Fred. Oh, I'm very sorry. I must have the wrong number. I just got a new phone. But you were really nice to talk to. What's your name? And it leads you down this path. They quickly move from SMS to either WhatsApp or Telegram or something like that so that they can have the secure communication. This is a long play fraud event that ends in a cryptocurrency scam. The problem with this is that everybody that is running that text message campaign is probably trafficked. And they were probably going to end up in a very bad situation once their usefulness is over. A lot of this is being run overseas, working very hard to try and mitigate this. If you just get a high, ignore it. This is right now the most complained about in 7726. It's the most complained about scam, and it's probably about 30 to 40% above this next level in complaints. This is a very large scam. Family scams, hi mom, hi dad. And this one kind of puzzles me because I have kids. I have two kids in college, and I have one that's getting ready to go to college, and I have another one that's getting ready to retire from the Marine Corps. So this scam is, hi mom, hi dad, I've broken my phone. Jimmy's letting me borrow his phone. Can you do me a favor and deposit enough money in this bank account so that I can go buy a new phone? I don't know about you guys, but if one of my kids breaks a phone that I bought, I'm not going to buy him another one. I'm going to tell them, yeah, I'm paying for your college. Move along. But this scam we saw in the UK. We were able to take a look at it and interact with the threat actors and see the money mule accounts that were taking place and mitigate some of those. But this scam, and I think it's still running over in the UK.
Yeah, big.
So it's a very large campaign. That was interesting. CEO scams. I imagine a lot of you have gotten a CEO scam. I'm in a meeting right now. I can't talk. Let me know when you get this text message. I'm in with a client. I really need you to go and get me 2 $500 gift cards, scratch off the back, and tell me that number. And you'd be surprised at I'm surprised at how many people I know that have fallen for this. A quick funny story, we got hit with it. My boss, my CEO was overseas. He was calling to tell me, make sure that we were aware of the scam. So when he called me, I picked up the phone and I said, hey, did you get those gift cards I sent you? It was a good laugh. And then we got traditional SMS phishing. So traditional SMS phishing is almost the same as email. You get a link, you click on the link, and it's off to the races. There's a lot of, it's very easy to manipulate SMS so that the scam looks good. The other thing is we'll see SMS, and Jake will probably run through a little bit of this. We'll see SMS phishing that is geofenced, it's geo-targeted. They're looking for specific people. They'll know that, this bank is really decent in this, or really prolific in this region of the area. So we're gonna make sure that you can only get to that fish if you are in this area, and we're only going to send to the NPA NXX, or the area code and first 3 digits of the phone number, so that only those people in that area will get that text message.
That's it.
This is where I get to hand it off to you, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's your best bet.
Thank God. I'm going to keep this because I'm sure I'll
Yeah, you will. So as Ben's sort of spoken about, there's a lot of SMS stuff going on, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do to try and prevent and mitigate this. Now, you've got the SMS stuff, the 7726, but we like to take it one step further, because at the end of all these campaigns, it's that credential phishing site. It's that money that the threat actors are trying to get, whether it's accounts, credentials, etc. So what we're going to look at here is disruption. How can we take it one step further and really annoy the threat actors? It's what I like to do, make them angry, make them irritated. So we're looking at disruption with phishing kits. What is a phishing kit? Well, it's essentially the threat actor's source code. We always get the sort of receiving end of these campaigns, and we always go, we want the source code. We want to understand what's going on in granular detail. And that's where phishing kits come in. These are the threat actor's source code. So when you've got phishing, it masquerades as a real site. So when we define phishing, it's a website stood up to impersonate, to masquerade as a real legitimate service. And to set these up, threat actors use phishing kits. And the reason they use them is because they're highly customizable. They're able to get these kits, they've got config pages on them, they've got settings, they can adjust, they can manipulate them quickly and easily to target who they want to target. We're going to take a deep dive into them later, but one of the reasons is they're highly customizable for use. They're also really cheap. Not many threat actors like to pay out of pocket for things when they start off. They like the free things, they like the cheap things. They're cheap. You can get them online for free. If you want a good one, you might have to pay a little bit. You're looking under $100 a kit. Some of the really expensive ones, $250, but you can probably get them for free if you sweet talk the actor. They're also widely available. You can get them online, you can get them on Telegram, you get them on Facebook, you can get them on marketplaces, you get them on the dark web. They're everywhere. They're really easy to get hold of, which is why credential phishing is such a problem. So let's try and sort of dive a bit deeper into these phishing kits. Here we've got a MyGov, an Australian government phishing site. You might see 10, 20, 100 of these sites. They all look the same. That's the whole point of phishing. You're not going to have different looking pages because then it defeats the point. All these phishing sites at the surface look exactly the same. And this is where phishing kits come in. We want to understand the source code. We want to dive deeper. It's essentially a zip file. All right, it's nothing clever, it's nothing incredible, it's a zip file, but it's what the zip file contains that is of interest to us. So with these phishing kits, it's essentially a website that's just been compressed into a zip file. So they go and make their website with their HTML, their CSS, their database files, their TXTs, the directory structure. You can see all the PHP files. Now normally once that's uploaded online, it's rendered server-side, so you don't get that visibility unless you're a host. Because it's been compressed in a zip file, you can download all that information. That is a phishing kit. It is the ability to deploy quickly and easily a working website. So a threat actor can buy a domain, they can drop their zip file, extract all, and they have a working website. No configuration, no making sure those things work and adjusting the CSS, it just works. So why do we care? Why is it of interest to us? So we can see here, we can actually dive deep into this code. We can see at the top some of the configuration requirements. We can see some of the information that they're gathering from users. You can see the exfiltration information on there. There's a huge amount of data, but it's being processed in these phishing kits through the PHP scripts. Take a look at the bottom. I can't see the line number, I'm afraid. The red line. That will come up later in the talk, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. Here's another example of what we can find in these phishing kits. So this is an exfiltration method through Telegram. You can see you've got the API keys, you've got bot tokens, you've got how it works. It really is the inside of a phishing site. So all of a sudden we've gone from this MyGov site and we're starting to drill deep. We're starting to understand the inner working of what looks like a typical MyGov website.
One of the things that we found in doing this work over the past number of years is the first thing that people think about when they think about a phishing site is we have to take that domain down. And taking that domain down is very important. I don't want to diminish the fact that it's important, but you're taking the domain down after the fact. So what Jake and Jake's team did in all of this was we got to move left. Like we want to take the problem back to the threat actor. So keep that in the back of your mind as we start stepping through this.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also got email addresses. So sometimes these threat actors will exfiltrate to their own personal email address. So we start working on attribution. We're starting to pull out additional IOCs from these campaigns. And we can use this for pivoting later, and that's what we're going to move on to. So we've come up with a bit of a methodology, a bit of a thought, a process. We like to call it a kill chain. As Ben was saying, moving left. We're looking for these indicators within a phishing chain. How can we disrupt the threat actors to the best potential? So as Ben was saying, you can take down a URL. I'm sure most people in here have either taken down a URL or got a vendor who does it for them. So let's look at URL takedown. It's really relatively simple to do. You can do it on Twitter. You find your phishing site, you find the host, you blast it out there into the public to protect people with that instant alert. The host normally replies and goes, oh yeah, okay, we'll deal with it, thanks. And it does work. It takes down the site, it protects victims from that campaign. But we like to take it further. This is what we're talking about. Threat actors have automation now. They can buy, upload, deploy phishing campaigns in one click. We need to make it harder for them. We need to constantly disrupt them as deep as possible. So let's start looking at the source code of these sites. What we're looking at here is a campaign called the Compact campaign. The exfiltration always wrote to compact.php. I'm not a very imaginative name, I'm afraid. But you can see here we've got 3 URLs which are being called. The top one is a media item. Within this media, it's essentially the CDN for this phishing site. So on that media domain, you were able to find a huge amount of information. So you had the CSS, you had the font, you had the images, you had the favicon. Essentially, the site was using 3 different processes to build the system. So we might take down the phishing page or the landing page, but let's go and take down their CDN as well, because then any other site which references this, obviously don't take down a legitimate CDN, but this is a threat actor stood up domain. So all the other phishing sites are then going to be taken offline, or at least rendered useless in that process. You'll also notice there is another thing in there, the compact.php. This is where the exfiltration logs are being written. So you've got the landing page, you've got the CDN, you've also then got the third endpoint, which is where the logs are actually going. And incredibly, threat actors, they're not into much sophistication sometimes. They will just take that PHP script, which essentially says, thanks for that post information, I'm going to write it to a TXT file. And if you opened emails.txt, you would find emails, IP addresses, passwords. It's as simple as that. So taking down these additional steps, researching the URLs, you can start disrupting the threat actor's process and all their endpoints, which then means when the threat actor needs to bring it back online, they need to rebuild their endpoint, their CDN, and then their phishing sites. And if you do it enough, they'll get bored. They'll find an easier target. You can see here, this is another phishing campaign. There's a bit of obfuscation going through it, but you can see here there's a base URL of formspree.io. This is an online form building website. And this is, again, the exfiltration method. So Formspree, it's a legitimate service. It's being abused by the threat actors. These websites don't like having abuse on their platform. They usually do sometimes respond quite well when you reach out to them and say, hey, look, you're having an issue. Here's the evidence that you're being abused. Can we work together? Can you take it down? What information can you give us? In this example, Formspree, I've got to give them a little shout out, were really useful in this campaign. We reached out to them and said, hey, look, here's the evidence of the abuse. Would you mind taking it down? They said, yes, absolutely. And that user who created that site had 7 other forms all doing the same thing. And they said, we've taken all of them down. We've also blocked the IP address and we've deleted his account. So we're starting to disrupt the threat actor now. All those 7 forms that they were using the exfiltration, they lose access to, they lose the ability. They've got to go back and edit all of their existing campaigns. They've got to get a new IP. I know it's not that hard, but they've got to recreate an account. It's just a hindrance, it's an annoyance. It's making their lives harder. So that's looking at URLs, going beyond the whack-a-mole of that landing page, seeing how a site works and taking the proactive steps to target other endpoints. But we've only got number 2 on this chain so far. Let's look at phone numbers. So we like our SMS. We've got some SMS campaigns coming up here. Now, as Ben already mentioned, you can forward these to 7726. You've got the URLs. We know how to deal with them. And 7726 will reply saying, well, what number sent you? Now, it wasn't 7726 that sent it. It's that sending number, that line at the top, the number that it originated from. We can take these numbers down. We can work with the carriers so that they can put fraud prevention controls in place. They can investigate the numbers. They can action the numbers. We need to start going one step beyond. If that threat actor is using a SIM card or any other platform, we can start following those chains, working out how is this number provisioned, what actions can we take. It's every single stage of a threat actor's infrastructure we can start to target. But it's not only sending numbers that get involved in this. Here we've got a couple of callback scams where it might say, can you give us a ring? Can you give us a call? Take down that number as well. It's not just a sending number that's part of this, it's also that number within the call to action number. Now these numbers, quite interesting, stay online a huge amount longer than the sending URL. Threat actors use this technique. They might have a SIM box, they might have a platform, and they will blast out millions of messages from a sending number, knowing it's going to get taken down within 5-10 minutes, etc., because the rates are so high. But people don't report the call to action number, which can stay online for weeks or months, and that's where victims fall foul, because that's who they're interacting with.
Hold up right there for a second. So take a look at the message on the right. So one of the things that we're doing with folks in like the FCC, FTC, folks who are higher up there that are making decisions on how we combat this, or forcing decisions to be made on how we combat this. And one of the things that we've heard time and time again is, well, what about robo-texting? And robo-texting, I don't like that term personally. It takes away from what's really happening with text message. So I will tell you, having worked in this industry for a number of years, other than what we saw, which was not actually a carrier issue, it's a problem on the iOS device, is spoofing does not happen. Email to SMS, there was spoofing that was happening because carriers didn't have DMARC set up. I'll let that sink in for a second. Once they got the DMARC set up on their gateways, we saw less spoofing come through. Still happens, but less spoofing. But the number that you see, with the exception of the problem that I mentioned earlier, that's the number that is sending that message. But if you look at the number that is on that right text message, that 141010027 number, people will see that and go, oh, that's a spoof number. Not a spoof number. That's email to SMS. When your message travels from the email gateway, the outbound email gateway, into the carrier networks, and it hits the SMSC can't process. Certain SMSCs cannot process an email address, so they convert that to that number. So this is causing a lot of confusion in the industry, and people go, oh, spoof numbers, not spoof numbers. So.
It's a great point. And thinking about the number, I'm talking about the takedown of that call to action number. You take down one number, it's reused in separate campaigns. Top number's a Wells Fargo campaign. The exact same call to action is also linked to a Bank of America campaign. So taking down these numbers disrupts multiple campaigns. That one little action has knock-on consequences. But it's not only over SMS that these numbers occur. We've got WhatsApp, Signal. Abuse occurs on there as well, using the inbound reporting, using the systems inside. And it's not only credential phishing that occurs. You can see here, this is ICI. I think it's an Indian bank, I could be wrong. But you've got an APK file that's being delivered here by this threat actor. So there's a number of campaigns that operate, the number of takedown opportunities. This is Kit Intel, one of our internal systems that we've got for storing phishing kits. You'll see it pop up a few times in this campaign. But if we take a scroll down here, you can see within these phishing kits, we've got, I think this is a Twilio number. So like Ben was saying, multiple ways to deliver SMS. You can actually see the numbers in these kits and these campaigns and how they're used by the threat actors. Again, additional disruption points. You don't need to be the recipient of these campaigns. You can use threat hunting, investigation skills to find and discover these numbers within the source code of the websites themselves.
And again, Twilio, very responsive if you send them information on getting this shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also got a exposed Twilio API key there as well. So As Ben said, Twilio is really responsive, really good to work with. Send them the numbers, they can investigate them. Send them the exposed API keys, they can get them shut down. Was it a compromised host? Was it a stood up host? They've got the data, we don't. They can either try and return it back to the customer, lock and secure their account, or they can shut it down completely. But we can do more than just understand this. Like I was showing before, we had that number that we saw in 2 campaigns, that knock-on effect. We can take these API keys and try and understand how frequently are they used? Where is this abuse happening? You can see here, if we do a search across all the phishing kits in our repository, we get 55 hits. So there's 55 phishing kits, all featuring exactly the same API key, all linked to the same campaigns. So we can start really building a picture and an understanding of taking one action and that sort of waterfall effect.
And think if one kit is responsible for 20 URLs. So one threat actor stands up 20 URLs using the same kit that has that. Now you can start to see the cascading effect of moving left. Now we're interrupting an entire campaign as opposed to the whack-a-mole where you're taking down one domain.
So what about bank accounts? Where do these come in? How can we start using bank accounts as a disruption method? So as we mentioned earlier, the hi mum scams. These are the most prominent and the easiest to access bank account systems that we're able to, or campaigns if you like, where we can gather this data. As Ben said, in the UK, these are really prevalent. We have seen them in the US. They haven't gripped that hard. We all see it quite a lot in Australia as well. You can see there's a number of different sending numbers there. These threat actors initiate a conversation with you. It mainly stays on SMS, and essentially it leads to a deployment of bank accounts. Mum, could you message me on? These are WhatsApp images, so these are all mule accounts. There's a number of ways that a victim can become a mule account. It could be stood up using stolen identities. It could be someone that's been paid X amount of money. They might be vulnerable to have their account used by threat actors. It could be someone who is completely unaware that it's occurred. It could be a compromised account. It's really trivial to reverse a bank account number to work out which the controlling bank is. Banks don't like abuse on their network. You can send them this information. This is the evidence that a bank needs. It doesn't need anything else. It just needs this screenshot to say, you've got a potential compromised account here. Please take some action.
Some people might think, how did we go about getting this information? It was just social engineering the threat actors on this. I mean, literally a couple of text messages and boom, they drop the bank account right there. Very easy to do.
Yeah, you normally tell people don't click the link, don't talk to them, don't reply. Sometimes if you know what you're doing, you can have a bit of fun and you can gain value and you can protect users at the end of it. When we were doing ours, we recovered over £500,000 of losses or potential losses from the actors involved, and that was only going to scale when you look at how many times these are actually being sent out to users. So banks are really responsive, they're good at taking this sort of action down, and the visibility they've got, they then understand, is this a stood up account, is it compromised, is the person vulnerable? And we also work with law enforcement to try and support these investigations and work up the chain, move left, as we like to say. So bank accounts, there's a little zoom animation as well. So bank accounts is a good one to use, there's easy reporting methods for them. API keys, we've looked at these slightly already, but there's a number of different API keys which are in use when running a phishing campaign. So these are all real examples that we've seen within phishing kits. Here we have a Discord exfiltration method. Discord uses mainly a post request, to my understanding. If anyone knows any better, please come and see me, I'd love to learn. You can send a post through the API key into a channel, and it recovers credentials through that. Discord, great to work with. They've got their own CTI team and hunt team. Send them this information, the evidence from that phishing kit, that phishing site. They'll take action, and like many other providers who care about protecting their users, that then snowballs because they then start looking into that user, what else they're attached to, all their other channels, bots, and it can start sort of clearing them down.
All of these API keys and bank account numbers and phone numbers have already been mitigated, so go ahead and delete those from your phones. You can't go and get money from these or use any of these API keys.
You've got Telegram. I would sort of make the bold statement that Telegram is the most used exfiltration method in credential phishing today. It was email, numbers sort of a couple of years ago. Threat actors have started moving away from email now. I think we took too many down. It was too exposing. They had to put a name in that, and it was hard to get multiple accounts. So Telegram now being used very heavily as well. There's some really interesting visibility you can get into Telegram. If anyone would like to understand more, come and see me at the end. I'm not screaming it while it's being recorded, but there's something there. You've also got Nexmo, as Ben said, that CPaaS platform. We've already seen Twilio keys. You've got a Nexmo key here, something that can be used, head back to that legitimate provider which is just being abused by threat actors. Talk to them, here's the information, they'll start taking things down. Here's a May tip tapping. It's a WhatsApp. It allows you to automate WhatsApp messages. Threat actors are using this to then send mass WhatsApp messages. You can target these companies with their API keys. Say, look, guys, you're being abused. Let's do something about it. So as I said, API keys, the main method of sending data at the moment, but mainly emails were the big thing a few years ago. But emails are still being used. It's still something that we can do to investigate email usage. There's some really interesting things you can do. So as I was saying at the start, you've got config files. This here is a threat actor's email. So this is not the end user. So there's a number of stages in credential phishing, so the different threat actors. You've got the developing threat actor, the actor who goes out to proactively build and make these kits in the first place. You've then got the deploying actor, the actor who will buy, steal, copy a phishing kit, who then actually goes and puts it online and takes in the data. So what you're seeing here is a developing actor. This is a threat actor, ex-Robotus, who goes ahead and actually builds these phishing kits. If you start taking down his email addresses, he's then going to struggle to communicate with potential customers. And Google don't want this stuff on their email services, and ex-Robotus needs this to stay online. They need that communication. This is their business at the end of the day. So think of beyond, rather than just looking at the exfiltration, also look at who's building this stuff, what our email addresses are around. Having a look at our kits, you can see there's over 2,000 phishing kits which have been built by ex-Robotus. He really is quite widespread, and as Ben said, each of those kits is a unique kit, so it might be that that kit's been deployed on 7, 8, 10, 30 domains, so that number really is sort of the much lower end of what disruption they've actually caused. Here we've got another exfiltration method from an Alibaba kit. If we have a zoom in on that email, there's our exfiltration emails. We spoke about these already, taking these down really simple. But we can take it further. We can always pivot. This is what I like to say to my analysts. Keep pivoting, keep hunting, keep looking. Don't just take that answer and go, yeah, we're done. What more can we do? Well, let's have a look. What other kits is this email related to? We've got 4 other kits here. Let's take a deep dive into these phishing kits and see what else we can find. So here's another one that we know has got grace logs in, and we can now see it's actually a comma separated value. Threat actors do this as a form of redundancy. If they think, oh, this email might get taken down, there's a lot of data in here, I don't want to lose access to it, they'll put a second exfiltration method. It could be via API, it could be a file write, it could be a second email address. So going from a single takedown method, so finding that Grace2 log and going, great, we're done, start pivoting, start investigating, and now we've found a RAX logs. This actor is using both these email addresses, or the threat actor group is responsible for them. You can see we've now got 6 unique kits associated with this actor. So we've now got over 10 kits in total from essentially one IOC right at the start. Here's a separate kit. This is looking at the bottom. We brought this up earlier. I don't know if you remember right at the start when we were looking at those pages, and I said, remember that list, that array list, the line in red. This is actually an email address. It's not that cleverly encoded. Using CyberChef, which I saw was one of the blue team's favorite tools, so shout out to CyberChef. A quick decimal decoding shows it as an email address. It's not the most ingenious way of hiding it, but it's there nonetheless. So thinking deeper, looking further. With that in mind, let's have a look in our system of how many times we've seen this email address. Again, over 2,000 kits have this email address hidden inside it. How threat actors haven't noticed and deleted it is beyond me. But taking down these email addresses really does have snowball waterfall effects.
So just for a little bit of clarity, and this is more for me than it is for you guys, because it took me forever to figure this out. So you've got a kit developer that developed this kit, and he sells this kit to the kit operators who go out and perpetrate the fraud. But he puts a hidden exfil method so that he's making money not only from selling the kit, but on everything that kit brings in, because he's got his own exfil in there. No honor among thieves.
So moving on to the last step of our kit kill chain. We've already moved along. We've taken down all the URLs associated with a kit. We've taken down phone numbers associated. Bank accounts we've recovered from the actor and we've sent them off. We've taken down the API keys they might be using. Any emails we've taken down, we've pivoted, we've found additional steps. We're now looking at anti-bots. Now, anti-bots are quite an interesting thing. They're annoying, but they work, and there's legitimate and non-legitimate services of them. So there's a number of ways that they can work. One of them is IP blockers. It's as simple as if a IP is within a range of a specific IP address, we need to block it. There's nothing more fun than when you use the same endpoint of a VPN and you suddenly see that appearing in new kits. You're like, yeah, I've really annoyed him. He's put my own IP address in his blocking file. So these are quite simplistic, very basic ways to run a anti-bot system. You've also got host names. So a lot of threat intelligence companies have host names for their scanners, and the threat actors know this, and they go, well, I don't want to be scanned by this. So you've probably seen App Anyrun and VirusTotal sometimes give funny results. It's because they're using the same host name on their user agents to scan the sites, and that threat actors are just going, we don't need these. If it includes this word, block it, send them to a different response. Geographic regions, GeoIP, really key. Lots of actors use this. Very simple to set up. I only want victims from the US. I only want victims from the UK, from Asia, from Australia. Wherever it needs to be, they can lock it down to a system of a place geographically. It makes it difficult sometimes to get around. If you don't know who it's targeting, it can be difficult. You need scanners and endpoints in multiple locations to gain the visibility to bypass these systems. There are legitimate services out there. Companies use it. I know with GDPR coming in Europe, some American sites, rather than trying to work through GDPR, just go, I'm just going to block all of Europe. If anyone in Europe wants to see my website, they can't because of GDPR. So there are legitimate purposes for anti-bots and for geographic preventions. Sometimes it's mainly threat actors that are using it. So having a look at our kits again, we can see this in the PHP files. They stand out to us. You can see that threat actors are not fussy about what they're blocking. They will take a whole IP subnet if they need to. If something's within any range, they're like, yep, just get rid of it. I don't need it. They would much rather block 10,000 legitimate victims if it blocks a couple of scanners, because they know that the site will stay on longer the less people that can scan and view their kit. And this list is massive, it just keeps going. Down at the bottom there, you've got some of the arrays of some of the host names, etc., that they'll block. So there really is a huge number of sites and scanners that do get blocked by this information. And then moving further down, you've got some more IP addresses, some more host names. They're not done very well. A lot of these anti-bot files are passed around between threat actors. Threat actors will open one kit and go, oh yeah, I want to take the anti-bot. Some of these files end up with 20, 30 different PHP anti-bot files to protect their site. The longer it stays online, the more victims they get. To stay online, they need to bypass scanners. Now, for most of you in the room, this looks like a funky old bit of text. That's not a blocker or anything. It's not difficult, is it, this game? Decode that. It's a basic mix of hex. You've got another hidden exfiltration method. There really is no honor amongst thieves. These things are just passed around again and again. So we go back to the kill chain, we start looking at this. We've got an email address in there, we can start taking this down. Every single step of this keeps coming back. We can move up and down the kill chain consistently. Here we've got another config file. You can see here how easy these systems are to set up. So there you've got an actual IP address on there of an antibots.pw. This is one of the sort of grey areas, grey companies, not sure how legitimate they are, but you've got to buy an account with them, and there's the exposed API key that you can set it up with. You can see at the bottom there, lots of true-false flags, blocked IPs, blocked host names, true-false, true-false. I'm sorry if you can't see it, I don't have a sexy zoom animation on this one. Here's a second config file. Again, this one's using, I can't even see it myself here. I think it's Killbot. Again, another grey anti-bot commercial option. It's as simple setup as all the others. Just stick in an API key and off you go. You're blocking all these systems. Again, we can pivot. We can understand the scope of these. So one of the reasons that taking down antibots is so important is you can see here, this API key has been using 12 unique phishing kits. Now, these antibots are in place to prevent scanners from seeing the phishing site. It's what the threat actors are trying to do. If you can take down an antibots file, maybe it's hosted on a third party, maybe it's a legitimate company that's being abused, if you take that down, you're essentially putting a beacon into the sky. I like to think of like the bat signal is come shooting up. Any scanner that now comes across this website isn't going to get blocked. It's not going to get redirected. It's going to scan it, categorize it as malicious. It's going to get taken down within a few hours. And this is why taking down these steps is so important. You're sort of shining a light into the sky every time you take down an antibots file. And it's not just for the one domain, it's for every single site using that API key or a key associated with that user account.
Another thing real quick about antibots, we've seen antibots that are deployed to keep organizational SOC units from being able to render that phishing URL. So you think of a takedown method where we're trying to play whack-a-mole with a domain, and you send that domain off, and I'll pick on GoDaddy. You send that domain off, hey, GoDaddy, this is a bad site. It's up, it's phishing, you got to do something about it. They send it down to their SOC. Their SOC is on antibots. They go to render the page, and they go, no, this is already down, move along. This is another reason why we've got to start moving left, because like he says, it shines this light on them, now everybody can see it.
Absolutely. So is this all just like a big sexy story for a conference? Is it just something that we think, everyone should try this? This is what we do. It works. We have successfully taken down email addresses belonging to Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, Hotmail, Yandex, ProtonMail. All these companies do work, they do respond, and they do take action. We've had phone numbers taken down from carriers, MNOs, CPaaS platforms, Google, TextNow, TextLocal. There's too many to list on here. We were trying to keep the slide in order. But there's quite a few phone number operators which do work to take these things down. API keys, we've got success from Discord and Telegram, although it was tougher, but you can do it. Twilio, really good to work with. WhatsApp, equally as helpful to take things down. We've taken down over 400 Killbot API keys. It might sound small, but these are 400 accounts that have been taken down, and every single website, there's potentially 10, 15 websites linked to these numbers scale. It means that the threat actors need to rebuild their whole infrastructure every time they try and deploy a credential phishing campaign. It slows them down. We have seen successes where threat actors are changing their TTPs midway through a campaign. So they'll have a campaign running, we'll see the same kit be deployed multiple times. We run a disruptive takedown operation against this. We run along that kit kill chain, taking down every step of the infrastructure, and then nothing for 2 months. And we think, what's going on here? And then it will come back again with whole new TTPs, and we start the process again. But that's 2 months where the client had no phishing for that endpoint. So it does work. We do have successes.
On the earlier form spree thing that we showed up there, we were working with AT&T on that, and they were getting hammered pretty hard. and I'll give credit to Jake, because Jake was the one that ran this down. When we worked with FormSpree and got that taken down, the threat actor had a lot of problems getting a new kit stood up. So he actually reverted back to an old kit that we had already known about, and we had already put blocking mechanisms, or helped AT&T put blocking mechanisms in. And so when he deployed that kit, it was already blocked, and he ended up just leaving. He's like, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. There's no ROI on this investment. So he failed. So it does work, and it is successful.
Absolutely. Anyway, that's brought us to the end of our talk. You've got a couple of socials there. You've got Ben's email address and my Twitter account. We'll be around if you want to come and ask questions. We do have stickers as well.
One last thing. I wanted to do a shout out to SAINTCON. And we had a vendor of ours that invited us here. So Jake's from the UK. I'm actually from Virginia. Bobby in the back is from Washington, D.C. And we have found that this conference is probably one of my favorite conferences to come to. But the other thing I want to say is, the folks at SAINTCON, what they did for me this year personally is just magnificent. So shout out to SAINTCON for what they did, all the people that work at SAINTCON, and all of you guys, you're the nicest, and I appreciate being able to come out here and do this.
Thank you very much, Raj.
I should have done a mic drop.
You'd have broken it.